From Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I am Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me is Patty O'Neal, president of arCapa LLC. Patty, I am delighted that you're here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh gosh, I know your background well because we have been friends for many years as well as we've been colleagues. And I can't think of a person who has a stronger background in coaching and team development. And so I am thrilled that you're here to share your expertise. Tell our viewers a little bit about how you got started in leadership development.
Oh gosh, that's a long story, Debbie. I started my career in human resources, and I think that's my first inclination to pay attention to how leaders were similar but different.
Yeah.
One of my first areas of responsibility was to support leaders in dealing with their leadership challenges. What I came to discover was oftentimes people enter leadership without much experience other than the technical side of it. It's like, congratulations, you're doing a great technical job. We'd like you to lead this now. And so now they have all the issues with colleagues and peers and all the things that come with that. So that was how I first became interested in leadership, because it was my job to support those leaders in those challenges. Then as I moved on in my career and led companies, I began to watch us as leadership team and what was working and what wasn't working, where we struggled, where we made headway. And that really got me thinking about how we as leaders can really impact the entire workforce in so many ways, starting from how we work together.
Would you say this is what really fuels your passion for leadership development? Because quite honestly, or building strong leaders, because to me, I see this as a passion of yours.
Definitely. You know, one of the things I believe strongly is, you know, Americans, we work a lot.
Yeah.
We work a lot of hours. And I think when we come home from a job we love, if we're fortunate enough to have a great environment, our family lives are better, everything's better in our lives. And it starts with great leaders.
Yeah.
A great place to work starts with leaders that are great to work for.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what are some of the challenges that leaders are facing today? Is it really different, you know?
I remember back in the early days where we could sincerely say, if we can just get through this, we could motivate our teams and say, you know, if we can just get through this, it will be back to calm waters. I'm not sure any leader could say that today. You think of the multi-generations in the workforce by themselves, just bringing different styles and ways of working. You think of social media. I mean, people are commenting on our goods and services before we even know what they've said, fairly or unfairly. You know, it just takes a second.
Right.
You know, there's so many challenges with global competition. Who's in your market?
Yeah.
You know, how you're going to deliver your services. I think there's a lot of challenges that leaders are facing today that they wouldn't have faced many years ago.
Yeah, because in that, what you're really describing from my vantage point is the fact that the pace of the workplace is really accelerated.
Yeah, it's the velocity and the information that's coming at you. You know, we don't just work at the workplace. You know, your internet's going all night long and you're getting emails, etc. So
yeah.
It's
yeah,
a real
there isn't
challenge.
that break from work anymore. Even when you're on vacation, I don't know how many people I've talked to over the years have their cell phones. They're expected to take their laptop. That's not vacation. There's no disconnect.
But it's really difficult as a leader to know what to expect.
Yeah.
And, you know, and what your boss might think you should do. What is the expected service level? When
Good question.
When you're trying to have a vacation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and how healthy and how re-energized.
Right.
Well, that's a personal opinion here. You know, coaching is a tool that is commonly used to develop leaders. And I know, as I said in the start, you know, you're one of the best coaches I know.
Oh, you're kind.
And so tell me, you know, why is coaching become such a popular tool?
Well, I think when you're in true senior leadership, it's a very lonely, it can be a very lonely place. It's hard to admit sometimes that you're unsure, that you don't you should get better at something. You kind of sense it, but maybe you don't want to share that with a colleague or your boss.
Yeah.
I think that's a place where, coaching can be, it's a peer-to-peer relationship.
Right.
It's a relationship where people are able to, a coach is able to help you creatively think, to really, you're a capable leader, but you really need to unpack some of those thoughts and challenge yourself, maybe be a little more innovative.
Yeah.
And really explore potential you haven't explored before. So I think it's an individual intervention that some people take at different trajectories in their career.
Yeah.
And it's, your equipped leader of coaching is what you choose. I mean, it's not rehab.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. It's not punitive, it's not corrective, it's
developmental.
It's developmental.
And it's an accelerator. Most people, when they get a coach, they'll see an acceleration in some of the things they've been trying to do, and there's a focus to that, and they can really appreciate that. Now, maybe they'd get there organically anyway, but as we talked about the velocity of business, maybe they need to get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that coaching really has that impact.
Right.
That's great. So, what would you say is really at the root, right, of the effectiveness of coaching? What really, to me, I look at coaching and say, yeah, I read I'm listening to the studies, I'm listening to the reports on the impact it has and how it's, really making a difference. But I'm just curious, is it because somebody's mastered the neuroscience?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of connectedness in neuroscience. We're learning so much more about the brain.
Yeah.
And how we function as human entities, and certainly the neurology plays a big part in, gaining control of ourselves, understanding ourselves, and when we are agitated or upset. Certainly that is a place at coaching where you can go to the basic level and understand the brain and how your body works and move from there. But coaching, we're always action oriented.
Yeah.
There's always action in every coaching conversation. We're not here to just talk generally. I'm not your rabbi, your priest, your minister, your counselor.
Right.
I'm your thought partner, and we'll unpack ways of looking at something and perhaps even putting a new frame on it. Looking at it anew, opening up ways to consider things you hadn't considered before, maybe stepping outside your own patterns or recognizing patterns in yourself. So the root of coaching effectiveness is for someone to be able to look at themselves honestly and not be fearful, explore that with a trusted partner, understand how it's impacting others. It's not about changing who you are, it's about being effective. And our coaching and my practice is always within the context of business.
Yeah.
So leaders may be very high quality individuals, but they're not effective in a certain area, and that's a great place at the root of coaching that you can focus your attention. A person that's being coached is really the decision maker of that process. They help frame up the focus of the coaching. Often we start with getting some 360 feedback.
Right.
What do others say you need to do more of? What would make you more impactful as a leader? What do you already know yourself?
Right.
And then focusing in one specific area and really honing in on that, Debbie. I think that's the real key to successful coaching, is starting with that focus area, but then moving out into action orientation, because we could talk something all day long.
Right.
But what are you really going to do about it?
Right. And it's holding them accountable for taking that action.
And doing the field work.
Right. Give us some examples of maybe some coaching assignments that you've had without, giving, so we're going to protect the innocent.
One of the things that as a coach, you have quite an ethical standard to keep confidences, and that's important, very, very important. Well, I can think of a young woman that I coached who was a new CEO of a nonprofit organization, and the organization had a lot of confidence in her, and she had been a key leader already in the organization, so she was promoted from within. Well, that in itself gives you different challenges. Now you're the leader of people you used to be a peer
that's
with.
a challenge often.
The organization was poised for growth, so we started that particular assignment with real clarity from the board, because the board are her bosses, of what they thought that the CEO needed to do and be for the organization in the next 18 to 24 months. And so that kind of set the table for us. Then we sort of did some work on how did she fit the profile they described? Where might her gaps be? And we together started working on a strategy to attack those. She's been very successful, still there many years later, and is enjoying the fruits of that early work that she did, I think, with the board and her staff. You know, through a coaching relationship, she was able to traverse that much more quickly than maybe she would have done on her own.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the one point that you've made, and this illustrates, your example illustrates this, is that it's development. You've got someone stepping into a new role, they don't know what they don't know sometimes, wanting to make certain that what they're delivering aligns with the expectations of their bosses, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
one of the places, I think, Debbie, that you might see coaching, people always ask me, where in a career trajectory would you insert coaching? I think one of the first big challenges leaders face is when they leave their functional expertise and they become the leader of functions that they do not know the answers to the problems or the technical areas that they'll have under their control. And that's one of those times where, boy, that can really be a challenge. Because now you've got to rely on your ability to identify talent, to build trusting relationships, to get people to tell you the truth early and often.
Right.
And that's a good place to think about it. Or when you become an enterprise leader and you're really building an organization and it's kind of you're kind of in charge of the ship. Those are two really critical areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points. Good examples. So leaving the functional area or the enterprise-wide. Yeah. Why would somebody pick up the phone and call for a coach? What are some of the good reasons?
The good reasons? There's some bad reasons.
Well, we can look at those too. Let's start with what are some good reasons and appropriate reasons?
The couple things I've mentioned.
Yeah, development.
They want to accelerate their own development. They know the challenges ahead of them and recognize that this would be a fantastic opportunity for their own development in a very customized way, individual. You know, it's a real gift to have an organization invest in you in that way. So sometimes that call might come from a very well-positioned HR person. That's their inside partner. It might come from their manager who's benefited from coaching before. I will tell you that coaching is most often recommended for people by managers or leaders who've been coached.
Oh, very
It's
good.
really interesting. It's the referral. You know, if you've not had a coach, you may be wondering, what's this all about?
Right.
But people that have been through great coaching engagements really understand the value and kind of mourn the loss of their coach.
Yeah.
And want to provide it to their up-and-coming talent.
Right. So they really are proponents of it and
definitely
try to get other people into coaching so that they can benefit from that as well.
Well, and those leaders that are in that position, they really become part of the process. You know, a person being coached, their manager is very critical to the process. We want to stay aligned with that manager and understand their expectations and make them a part of it. There's a role for them.
Yeah, because I know you said earlier that when you're coaching someone that you're going to start with the 360 so you get some feedback from the stakeholders, but then there is a separate conversation that you're having, maybe do a three-way between the coachee, their manager and you, right?
Absolutely. Well, as part of the 360, it's the manager, the peers, and the direct reports, and there can be other adjunct groups that are, especially in matrixed organizations. But definitely that manager stays aligned with the focus. They agree with the focus. They often agree with the stakeholders that we'll interview.
Okay.
You know, so that they feel like you're asking the right questions, you're talking to the right stakeholders. You know, we're in agreement. We sort of have a midpoint evaluation. How are things going? Are they seeing what they want to see? And it's an opportunity for the person being coached to ask their manager for new support.
That's good.
You know, it'd be helpful if you'd give me feedback this way or whatever.
How, I know this is probably situational, but how are coaching assignments generally assessed in terms of success? What are the metrics for success? And again, I'm sure it's situational, but can you give us kind of some examples?
Well, I think that's one of the parts of the keeping in touch with the manager is, what's the manager hoping to see? And that's kind of decided, we're focusing on this, we'd like to see this, we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we'll get anecdotal evidence if we can use those little the stakeholders along the way.
Sure.
Then we've got nice stories. And we've got real feedback along the way to tell us we're hitting the marks.
Got it.
That people are seeing the difference because it's behavioral.
Yeah, right.
It's a mindset, and then it's behaviors.
Tell me a little bit more of that. It's a mindset.
People can change behavior, but not have changed how they think about something or how they've imagined it. And so behavior can kind of snap back like a rubber band. I mean, I can add this behavior, but it cannot come from my heart, cannot come from how I view the world. And it feels uncomfortable and mechanical. But if I have my mind wrapped around why it's the right thing and I start to see a pattern and the benefit of doing it a different way, then my mindset, it starts to leave the mechanical realm and move into the more habitual.
Right, so it's
natural.
integrated. It's part of who I
That's a great
am.
word.
Yeah, gotcha. That's perfect. So when is coaching not appropriate, Patty?
Well, one of the times it's not appropriate is when I get a phone call from a manager who really wants me to stand in for them. Meaning there's some tough conversations that need to happen. There's something they would like to see out of a leader, and they somehow they've given maybe some words that are more optional or suggestive, but not as clear. That there's consequences if this doesn't change. In those cases, the manager needs to give, the coach never steps in for the manager.
Right.
So we don't want to have a hidden agenda. And so sometimes the manager is the one that needs the coach to take care of those kind of tough things that they're not taking care of.
Right.
So that's one time that I would say it would be a time to not do it. And when an organization, if there's a performance issue that needs to be dealt with, you might want performance consulting to be done.
Right. Because it may be a last-ditch effort. If it's performance, it could say, we've tried everything, and if it fails with you, they're out the door. Well, that's really not, right? Is that inappropriate?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a place where I would suggest. I would be very clear that that's performance consulting, and that's not that a coach couldn't provide performance consulting, but it needs to be set up in the appropriate way, and usually HR is involved, and it's a very ticked and tied way. But what we don't want to do is give coaching a name in an organization that mixes the two.
Right. Going to shift direction on us just a little bit. Another area that I know that you are really passionate about and do some excellent work from small organizations to large global organizations is really in the building of cohesive teams.
Love that word.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about what you do in that area.
Well,
what might be happening
nothing
with a
gets
team?
done except through teams in the workplace.
Yeah.
It's just how work gets done.
Yeah.
Sometimes those teams are all over the world. Sometimes people don't work in the desk next to you. In
That's
fact,
it.
less and less is that happening. So team effectiveness really starts, the phone will ring around a leader that recognizes that they need to get their team really in the harness together in a new and different way. But teams start with leaders.
Yeah.
So team effectiveness has to really have a leader involvement. The leader has their fingerprints all over that team. And so sometimes I'll get a call from a well-meaning HR person or someone else that's on a team that wants to help do that and has recognized it. And you can start to do the work there, but without the leader's ownership of that work, it doesn't move as well. It's not as impactful or effective.
And it's not going to be sustained.
No, there's too many opting out moments.
Yeah. How do you, in general, approach team building?
Well, I think it's really getting a look at where the team is today. What's the current status of the team? Often we like to start with interviews. you know, what's the team like? What's it like to be on the team? What do you wish the team did more of? Where do you think your gaps are?
Yeah.
Sometimes we can collect that information in phone interviews or in an online survey and bring that to the team in a way that, you know, you don't have to say it, I don't have to say it, but it gets said. And I can even acknowledge some things safely that way that we're working on. Because a lot of times there's just lower trust in the team, maybe because of perceived wrongs, or maybe there's been turf squabbles, or, you know, just, you know, maybe we're just not aligned in our goals.
Sure, sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I like you like me, but our work, you know, sales and operations sometimes has a natural
a little
rub.
Right, right. I was going to call it yin and yang.
It is a yin and yang. Sometimes
Give
we're
it
in those spaces when you get this, then I've got to have to kind of prop up my side, and it's hard to give that up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, you know, in today's environment, what would you say represents, you know, one of the greatest challenges for teams today?
Having time together.
Okay.
I think often having the time together to really develop relationships, because when you think about it, teams are a collection of individual relationships.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
If five of us are sitting around this table and we're a team, it's how I work with you and you and you. You know, it's not us before it's you and me.
Right.
And so I think having activities for teams to really understand each other, become more self-aware of yourself and others, through maybe some personality assessments, just getting to know each other at a personal level.
Right.
You know, because often I'll listen to you differently if I get to know you as a personal level, besides you're the guy from purchasing.
Right. I might be able to be more open to your ideas because it's not so off the wall, because I have a better understanding of where you're coming from.
Or I'll give you a little bit more room so I can understand what you're saying. I'll listen longer.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there's self-awareness, there's kind of who we are.
Yeah.
And then there's what do we do together, and how are we going to do it? What are we going to do and say together? And you know, the best teams can do a lot of things apart. Why? Because they trust one another.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got that. You know, I don't worry that what we said in here doesn't happen out there.
Right, right. That's perfect, because to me, I think that that's something I see all the time is low trust. You know, and if trust isn't there, it really impacts the way a team can work together.
Oh, absolutely.
I see that as very foundational.
Yeah. Yeah, we won't exactly keep our commitments to one another if we don't trust one another, or we'll be suspicious.
But in a high trust environment,
oh, it's dividends.
Yes.
Pays big, big, big dividends.
Huge. Boy, the speed we can get things done, the quality of the work, giving each other room.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we don't have 3 layers of checks and balances. We don't have to have 4 or 5 people check off if we can spend this money or whatever, where we have high trust and you know, we can loosen those things up a little bit.
Yeah. In the last minute that we've got or so here, what would you say, how is success actually measured, Patty?
In team effectiveness?
In team effectiveness.
Well, I think really great teams decide how they're going to work together. When we talked about who we are, what we do, how we're going to do it, and they call out behaviors that they agree that they're going to show up with to one another all the time. And they're going to drive those behaviors into their groups because it flows down.
Right.
And I think when we really honestly scorecard ourselves on how well we're doing those things, how well we're putting big issues on the table, and we're having really challenging conversations, and we're not in agreement, but we're really willing to align on a decision and not hold anything back and really support that decision going forward. I think teams that are doing that are really scorecarding how they're doing in those things, are probably driving their businesses forward and giving clear direction, aligning the company's assets. I think they just have a better chance at delivering on their strategies. So I mean, ultimately we have to deliver for the company.
Right.
And sometimes that means calling a pig. But we have to do it in the room. But I think the teams that are able to do that, They keep track of how they're working together. They're really honest about it, and it's part of their usual agenda. So how did we do today?
Yeah, yeah. So they're really focused on having that open and honest dialogue and just working the problem. You know, just work the problem. Don't attack the people. Work the problem.
Right, and really hold themselves like, where are we on the behaviors we agreed that we would exhibit to one another?
Good point.
And take care of things when you've made a mistake. We own it. We go and we apologize or whatever, and we don't let things fester.
Right that wrong.
Right the wrongs and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such the human condition.
It really is. Well, Patty, I know that you have brought a lot and shared a lot with our viewers around leadership development to give them a better understanding of what coaching really is and how they can grow as a leader if they have an aspiration to really accelerate in their own role as a leader, as well as the team development. So I think that this has been very helpful, and I know a lot of people walk away with a lot of great information. So thank you for being with me.
It's my pleasure, Debbie.
On behalf of my guest and everyone here on the set of Your Career, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.